I know you said earlier, like you're a writer. That's one way you define yourself. And writing has, we don't remember exactly how you said it, but you said it has led to a lot of things in your life, or just by writing things, it's kind of opened certain doors. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, it's funny that you bring this up too, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently as well. Because I've observed that it's not actually the writing, it's the publishing, because there's like a big difference. You can write in notebooks and you can paint your masterpieces and keep them stacked up in your closet for nobody to see. But it's the actual like act of hitting that publish button, which has led to just things that I didn't necessarily plan for.
Yeah.
You know, things happen when you put yourself out there, I guess is the best way to put it. And I really can, I mean, even meeting my wife, my wife saw the stuff that I had been publishing online for a long time. And I guess like she was reading it for a while. This was when I was living in South Florida and she lived in Boston. And one day I just got a strange message from some weird hippie chick. It's like, hey, like I've been reading your stuff for a while. I just want you to know that like I've been following you and I enjoy
It's amazing.
Yeah, what you write. And so I think that the power of like sharing yourself is much more than what we think of it on Twitter. Like when you share your writing or anything really, like this idea of hitting publish is something that I'm having a hard time defining, because it's really just a metaphor for like sharing yourself, right? And so some people hit publish by like lifting weights, and that's just their way of like expressing who they are. Some people hit publish by, you know, like the easier ones, by painting, or the ones that are more literal that like we totally understand. Some people hit publish by, I mean, I told you I train Muay Thai a lot. Like I see a lot of people who find ways to express their ideas through like violence in a weird way, you know, and it's like really beautiful. And so the writing has just been my personal way that I've fallen into that. My mom was a writer. I read Harriet the Spy when I was really little. Like that was like a really, that was like an important thing for me, because I just thought it was so cool that she carried a notebook around with her everywhere. And I mean, you know, you can't actually see on my camera, but there's a bookshelf right there where I keep all my notebooks. So I got like all the notebooks that I've written throughout my life, stacks and stacks of them. And it's been like a really important professional, but also like spiritual process for me to just remind myself that like I have, it's not an obligation to anybody else. It's an obligation to myself to like shed who I am continuously, because then it's like a process of like revealing more and more of yourself. It's like I've learned who I am through doing that, and it's a cool byproduct that like cool shit happens to me through the process of trying to be better. And I've done all that through writing.
It's so interesting. Would you say that you were ever like a shy person? Or more of a shy. Okay, because I feel like the action of publishing and putting yourself out there, as painful as it is, it's almost like the best antidote for that. Not that shyness is anything to inherently fix, but if you don't want to be a shy, or you feel like you have something important to share, the process of like almost doing the exact opposite of what you want to do is like the only thing that you really need to do.
Yeah, there's no question. It's painfully shy, you know, and still am. Every time I get on a podcast, the whole entire time I'm thinking to myself, like, this isn't coming out right. You know, like I can't get my thoughts out there. I feel like
I literally am thinking the same thing too. So I think more people think it than they actually talk about.
I think you're right. Yeah. And I don't know, I don't want to say like it plagued me, but it prevented me from just being who I wanted to be for a long time. And it was through that like shedding experience of publishing my work that you learn two things. One, you learn that nobody actually cares that much, right? Like it's not actually a big deal. And then you also learn that worst case scenario, people really, really care and something bad happens, you learn that like you're not going to die and you're totally fine. And it's like a survival mechanism, really. Like, it sounds dramatic when I talk about it this way, but it is the core mechanism in your brain that is screaming at you like, no, 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 don't stand out from the crowd. Don't isolate yourself. Don't put your ideas out there, because like we're not wired to live in the way that we live now. We're wired to, like be cooped up in a cave. And if you speak out, you might offend the chief, and then the chief might fucking like chop your head off, or worse, throw you out of the cave to fend for yourself in the wilderness, So I don't take it lightly. Like, it is hundreds of thousands of years of evolution that is forcing you not to publish what you think and what you like truly feel and what you want to express. And so it's like a real courageous act to do that routinely.
I feel like you're talking to me directly right now, Tim. I've been struggling with this so much lately. So this is a little cathartic for me, and hopefully our listeners too. Okay. Well, I have all these other questions I'd love to ask while I still have you. Speaking about writing, I know that you're involved with Copyblogger. Some places I see CEO, some places I see partner. I'm sure both are true. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you got involved and what you do with them now.
I'd love to. Copyblogger has been a really big part of my life for a long time. So starting at the beginning, the first blog or brand I ever started was called Sober Nation. It was when I was getting sober and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, trying to think like, how do I survive? I got no education. I was a contractor growing up, and that was fine, but I had to live a new kind of life. And I started writing, and this blog, eventually people started reading it. Like, it's really all it was. And I'm thinking, like, who are these people? How did they even find me? That's how I discovered SEO. And, got into it a little bit and found Copyblogger. And so this was 10 years ago, right?
Wow. And
Copyblogger was, and still is, I think, by a lot of people, considered to be one of the most like authoritative brands, websites, but also just like educational platform for people that want to be good writers. And so as I was waking up every morning and writing that day's article for Sober Nation, the first thing I would do is go to Copyblogger and quite literally copy exactly what it is that they were doing, except just like translate it a bit for a recovery audience. So if they had the blog post for the day that was like, I don't know, 5 ways to become a better editor, who knows, something like that. I would do like 5 ways to become a better helper for somebody that is struggling. And then I would take the format, like where they put bullet points in their article. I'd be like, okay, this is where I'm going to put bullet points in my article. I can't say how much I ripped off what Copyblogger was doing, but it worked. And it's not like I plagiarized their material.
You learned. I'd say you learned.
Yeah, I just learned,
Yeah.
And so Brian Clark, he was the founder of Copyblogger. He became like a real hero to me. Years and years into it, he reached out to me on Twitter for the first time because, well, I guess just he noticed me because I would like his stuff and just comment from time to time.
Right.
And I'm a huge Fight Club fan. The book, especially, the movie is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but the book also had a real impact on me. And there's a line in it where Tyler Durden says, "You are not your fucking khakis." And so that's always been in my Twitter bio. And the first thing Brian Clark ever said to me is, me being the doofus I am, I had the contraction wrong. So instead of like, you are not your as a possessive, I did it as like a plural. Yeah. And so the first thing my hero ever says to me is he reaches out to me on Twitter. It's like, hey, by the way, like your grammar is wrong. And I'm in the Fort Lauderdale airport going through baggage claim. Like, oh my God, like Brian Clark. And so that's how like we first met each other and would just exchange DMs from time to time.
Yeah.
And it was cool. And 10 years later, Sober Nation is doing what it's doing. That's still a company that I own and really means a lot to me. And my agency had been doing really well. And basically I was in a position to be able to come on board as a partner. Some things happened as a result of me publishing my work. It was my podcast, actually. Where, like, I met somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who introduced me to somebody, you know, and yeah, I was able to buy the majority share of the company. It was right before my 10-year anniversary of getting clean, and the whole thing sort of came in this weird full circle type symbolism, I guess you could say. And that's how I got involved with it. So I think technically I am the CEO. I don't even know, really. It doesn't matter. There's only 3 of us, right? But it's a powerful, powerful website. And I had a vision for it. I knew I didn't want to build like a huge 20-person team like it was before. I just don't have any interest in that. And so I got 1 employee and my assistant. And we just built like a really good system around it. And I'm really proud of it. Like, it was the scariest, dumbest thing I've ever done. It really was. Like, the website didn't have any revenue attached to it. It was just a blog. It was just attention. You know, there was 100,000 or so people on the email list and a blog. But what it had is, so Copyblogger's been around so long that this was even before like social media was a big deal. And so back then when you would post articles, they would go onto RSS feeds, and you can't really do that anymore. They just don't exist. And so to find a website that had the kind of backlink profile that Copyblogger has is very, very, very challenging, because people don't link to each other like they used to just tweet stuff, you know? And so I saw that and I said, I can SEO this website. Copyblogger has never actually SEO'd really well. I can create services around it. I can create a product around it. And it's been 3 years or so, but we're doing it and it's going really well. So it was terrifying.
Wow.
It probably didn't make sense business wise. Like, if I was a business coach and somebody came to me with that, I'd be like, this probably isn't the deal. You know, it's a lot of money. There's no revenue, maybe not, but there was just something inside of me that said, like, even if I lose all my money, I'm just going to give this a shot. I'll really regret it if I don't do it. And now we're cruising. It's going really well.
So going back to what you said about Sober Nation, like it's your other business or one of your 3 businesses right now. What does that look like today?
Well, really good. Like, I'm having a problem with it. And this is going to sound so pretentious, that we built the website from a structural standpoint so well in the beginning that it's difficult for me to update the site, because if I update the site and I redesign it and I change some of the link structure and the web format, like, I'm really, really terrified that I'm going to crush my rankings. And it's not that I'm just coming up with this. Sober Nation is actually a part of, there's 4 websites that basically do the same thing. Sober Nation was the first one that I built. And then me and my best friends, we all got sober together. We built these other sites. It's the same business model for like different niches in recovery, let's call it.
Gotcha.
And over time, we've like rebuilt these other sites, and sometimes it's succeeded and sometimes it's really crashed and burned. And I'm not joking, like, painful. Wow, I can't believe this happened. And so I have this whole big redesign lined up, and me and my partner have been working on it forever, but it's just like every single month, because we spent so much time on the content on that site, and it's like more and more authoritative. Right. It keeps growing and keeps growing and keeps growing. So like, I can't, like, I'm too scared to relaunch it into this new vision that I have, because I don't want to shock Google too much. And so here's like the thing that keeps happening that makes me realize that not doing anything is actually the best method, is that, you know, sometimes, especially for SEOs, you get lost in like the graphs and the traffic and the keywords, and you forget that there's like real people reading it, you know, but, the messages that I get every day from people that are either like, hey, thank you, this helped me so much, or like, hey, this article helped me have a conversation with my mom, or, you know, like, I got sober. It just happened to me the other day. Someone found me on Twitter. They sent me a DM just happened to me. Someone said, "Hey, I read this article and it was the inspiration I needed. And I'm reaching out to you now to let you know that I just got a year sober." And
wow.
yeah, like it like really happens. And it's tough to like just pass that by as no big deal. Right. And so there's a weird side of me that feels very responsible to protect the architecture of the website, because even though it's imperfect, and even though it may not fit this grand vision that I have of what I want the brand to be, and the new styling and the new logo and all of that guru market stuff, there's a side of me that feels really, really protective of what it is, which was always a way for me to do what we were just talking about. I was helping people just by expressing myself. So I like, like I said, it sounds pretentious.
No,
it's all thriving, but my biggest problem right now is that it's just going so well that I can't make it better because I'm scared to. I know.
This new vision that you have, like, is it more of just design wise and navigation wise, or what else is baked in? Okay.
Yeah. Design and navigation. That's exactly what it is. Those two things. There's some problems with the site currently. Broken links. You know how it is.
Right.
The regular people won't see, but I look at it and I think this bothers me so much. But
well, you've been working on it for what? Like 7 to 10 years now you've been working on it?
10. Yeah.
10.
I first started in 2011. Yeah.
Do you remember what your first blog post was about?
I do, but it doesn't exist anymore. What actually happened is I had a mentor basically when I moved to Florida, a guy that I still talk to, was really helping me get my life together. And he bought me a subscription to Success Magazine. And the Success Magazine used to come with CDs, which doesn't make me sound old. Like I said, I'm only 36. It's just wild to me to think that CDs aren't even a thing anymore, when 10 years ago, it's all that we used. And there was a CD with an interview with a guy named Seth Godin. And I didn't know who Seth Godin was. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even really know much about the internet. Like I said, I was a carpenter my whole life. And in this interview, he talked about, it was when he published Purple Cow, and it was a long interview. And so I was like, wow, this guy's ideas really speak to me. I like what he has to say. And at the end of it, there's the typical question. It was like, if somebody's just starting out, like, what would you tell them? And he says, start a blog, don't tell anybody about it, and write in it every day. And so that's what I did. I didn't think about it harder than that. I went to Blogspot, which also doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I
had a Blogspot.
Yeah, of course you did.
Yeah.
And I started writing. So the first post I ever wrote was how to make a perfect peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
No way.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
100% serious. It's the first thing I ever wrote. And eventually that blog spot turned into Sober Nation, because that blog it was mostly me writing about getting sober, because I was losing my mind, right? Like I had no idea what I was doing. I left Philly. I'm in South Florida. I don't have any money, scared. There's lizards running around. Like I'll never forget seeing the lizards for the first time, just being like, where am I?
Florida's like a mini Australia with its wildlife.
Certainly. Yes. Yeah, certainly. And
how to make a perfect PB&J.